but conditional upon certain innovations in design. And we actually are viewing this as we may potentially require innovation, everything from the vehicle to the buildings and all elements in between. So we're talking about the routes, the public spaces, real estate projects, and all of the related policy packages that we might operationalize in roads. You gave me the magic? And so essentially, as I said, this is a joint partnership between MIT and La Católica and the relevant schools. We have essentially two teams. We have the academics, the faculty and teaching assistants involved in all the course preparation and implementation. And then we expect to have a team of master's students in both universities. 15 is the target number. Roughly equally coming from architecture, planning, and transportation engineering, meaning we have a total of 30 students at the two universities. So 15 at MIT, 15 at La Católica. And we have some fortune in here that we are not all new, we know each other, but in fact, we've done a similar planning studio in Santiago with Rosana Foray. I was involved early in the 2000s. And then Jan Wamper, who's my colleague from architecture, has been leading the Beijing Urban Design Studio, where we have actually some alumni from that activity here for almost 30 years. And if anyone is a maestro, truly, in the way you extract extremely quality, innovative design work from students in the studio setting, it is Jan Wamper. And so we're extremely fortunate to have him on the team. He really is a master with the way he works. But essentially, we see the overall goals of this project is threefold: to help fill a knowledge gap that we at least perceive, and I think is supported by the evidence, the literature in any case. Can you actually kind of design for BRTOD? Does it require different innovations? If so, what forms of innovations? We believe that the technology, broadly speaking, of BRT actually opens great opportunities for catalyzing TOD, but it requires us thinking about TOD in a different way. Possibly. And so we actually want to then develop and demonstrate some of these by using real places. And then this helps us most importantly because this is an educational production that we hopefully will train the next generations of designers, urban planners, and transportation engineers and planners to understand how you might in fact be able to capitalize on BRT to develop TOD. So our specific objectives are kind of identifying the conditions necessary to do this. We'll examine two specific corridors. I'll get into a detail about those. We're not only looking at the corridors themselves, but all of the related elements that have to do with generating it. And then, our key here is that we're not just looking at this as a technical problem, but we're looking at this as a problem that's inserted into an existing urban space where the actors are complicated and so forth that we all know from the work we've done in the past. The image here is not very good. It is the only image I even have in my presentation. But essentially our model is the following. We're going to choose one corridor in Santiago. And preliminarily at the moment it's Gran Avenida. Yep. But this is possibly subject to change. The idea is we'll be working with local authority in each as our client, essentially in each place. So Trans-Santiago, in the case of Santiago. And then the second corridor will be in Boston, and most likely the urban ring. Now, it will not be the entirety of the urban ring. This is about 23 kilometers of Gran Avenida. And so we probably look for something similar. Maybe it would be, MIT is right here. And so it might be, at least choose part of the corridor that runs through MIT, literally right through MIT, maybe the backyard or the front yard, depending on your point of view. So we might choose a segment that's roughly comparable. Now the idea here is the following. These corridors offer transects of place. So you have downtown all the way to kind of low-income housing and something in between. So we would probably end up focusing after the initial analysis on 3 particular sites along each corridor. So we actually have 6 different cases of design innovation potential in the 2 distinct corridors. So that's the basic idea. The administrative or logistics of how we're going to do this is we're going to have a simultaneous implemented class in both places, Católica and MIT. And so this allows us to take advantage of cross-learning opportunities, both amongst the faculty involved, the students involved, and the context involved. And we want to parameterize this work in a way that you don't, this is a very important challenge in this kind of pedagogy, is you need to kind of give the space broad enough to allow for innovation, but not so broad that students are off designing tramways or elevated PRT, elevated evacuated tube transport, or whatever you want. And so the focus right here is can BRT deliver TOD and how? And as I mentioned earlier, literally looking at potential for innovation from the vehicles all the way out. The vehicles themselves, which I personally think have some space for innovation as well. Just to give you a quick, so basically we're starting prep now, literally now. We've already done a lot of the groundwork in Santiago, or our Catholic partners have. And all of that groundwork will be completed by the beginning of August when we deliver 2 briefing books to the class when it starts, with all the necessary electronic annexes. Then the workshop will actually be implemented from August to December. Here we have a slight technical challenge, which is the not exact symmetry between the academic calendars. So Catholic University starts in August and ends at the end of November. We start in September and end in the middle of December, but we'll work that out. Then the work, the students will come up with their final proposals, 6 proposals, that will be presented to authorities and relevant stakeholders. And then the work returns to us as faculty that have to synthesize this work to a higher level. So kind of synthesizing the student proposals and then starting to think about the generalizability of this to other contexts. Because of course our ultimate goal is that this is not just relevant to Boston and Santiago, although we want to deliver something relevant there, but figure out how such a method might be continued elsewhere. Which also includes thus not only a bilingual report, site-specific proposals, generalizable recommendations, but also the educational lessons. So what might other educators do so we could do this? This could be done in India, or this could be done in Africa, or this could be done elsewhere in the United States, and so on. And that's it. I'll end it there.
Yes, very, very nice, and also interesting that the team, even for such an innovative project, they were able to capture external funding from a third-party source, which will be funding part of this experiment. Tony, did you ask for?
Yeah, just a question.
Yeah.
What are the chances of any of these corridors being implemented in the future? Is there already financing for this? Are you worried about this, or will you happy that it just becomes a case?
That's a really good question. I mean, ideally, we're not working in an academic vacuum. Here, there's a delicate balance between being too close to something to being implemented, because then you have a lot of toes to step on, and people who don't want their firework offended and so forth. Gran Avenida, as I understand, is
we were together. Remember, in last May in Santiago when you were there, and we had this workshop where with Onesimo's work about relationships between the agencies and between the operators. The Minister of Transportation said the best project I have over my table is a BRT through Gran Avenida. I won't do it. Why? People don't want it. People say, don't build us a BRT. We would like to wait for Metro. And the minister said, this is the best project I have over on my table. So it's very interesting that we'll be approaching exactly that particular corridor to see if we can also address these elements to make it more feasible from the urban and citizen perspective.
The urban ring case. I mean, Nigel and John can speak too much more. As a resident of the city and the user of the system, my suspicion is it's pretty far off.
The State Secretary of Transportation, though, has put an emphasis on looking at 3 to 5 corridors and implementing 2 to 3 of those in the next several years. This is one of them, at least the north side of the urban ring, not the south side. And the city of Cambridge has provided support for this, not wholeheartly and stuff, but they've made commitments like saying they're willing to put in bus lanes, So it's not committed, it's not funded, but it's like in this phase of we actively want to study these corridors.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's offer contact. Well, the team in Adriana has done a manual on design, transit-oriented development, general transit, sustainable transport-oriented development. They branded it TODs, and it's branded. So You can use that as material.
Do we have to pay you like royalty?
No. If you do not, yes. And the other is the work in India that has been done also. As it has been thinking land development around BRT. So at least some material that we believe it could be helpful for it.
Definitely. I mean, that's the plan. As soon as we get moving, we're going to collect as much information and reach out to, of course, all the BRT Center partners. And I also think that the recent traffic safety guidelines are also very relevant to this work. So,
yeah, excellent.
So, for sure.
Thank you.
So let's move to the next talk, which was supposed to be commenting this one about where Yang is going to do from the China Sustainable Transport Center. He's going to comment on this particular topic, and then we'll move towards bus control, my favorite topic.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to share our perspective from China side to this specific topic. So first of all, let me introduce the current status, BRT status in China. So it is quite amazing to see the rapid growth of the BRT corridor development in China. So right now, the newest number we have is that around 1,000 kilometers are now in operation in Chinese cities, and also including 16 cities. And in addition, another 26 cities actually has a plan, or they have some corridor, BRT corridor being constructed. So I would say that in China nowadays, the mayors and politicians already embrace this BRT concept. However, as the center, we also feel that there's a trap, because those mayors have an illusion that the BRT itself can solve everything. However,
excuse me, what is the source of the numbers?
Actually, part of the information were obtained from the Ministry of Communication in China, and some of the information were gathered from our local contact persons. So it's a mix. Yeah. But it's a new number. We just did the count by the end of last year. And the reason I say that there's a solution that for quite often when people talk about the BRT in China, they think about the corridor itself, but neglecting the context. However, China is building BRT, but it's also building cities. Sometimes the effort is going in parallel. So without integration, there might be undermine the benefits of having a BRT system. I'd like to show this empirical study I did about 3 years ago with Chris and under help with from Sam. So it's basically to discover the impact of the corridor form on the people's access to the BRT system. So I kind of surveyed three different types of corridors in this city, and you can see basically these two are more car-oriented form, corridor form. Well, the middle one is more like in a human scale walkable corridor environment. So what I found is that the people who are accessing the integrated boulevard corridor tend to walk more. So that means that for this kind of corridor, we have a bigger catchment area. And while the other two kind of shrink in the size. And this kind of some numbers, so as you see the average walking distance to the stations kind of vary across different type of corridor. And And I won't go to very detailed information for that research, but it's kind of implications. So a walking front corridor can enlarge catchment area significantly. So the scale is about 150 to 170 meters. And also also it will influence your transit ridership demand analysis. And the third, touching the context issue, we need to avoid building unworkable cities. And finally, I'd like to just show you a practice case our center is now doing. In the typical situation in China, where we have the super block in new towns, you can see the scale is about maybe 8 or 500 meters one side. So it's really and this is the photo when we first arrived, and you can see that this is the BRT station. They put the BRT at very first stage, but they just don't think about what will be happening in the future in the surrounding context. So we think this is a mistake. And also this is to show that not only the street is wide, also the government sets a very huge setback, which means that if you put a station in the middle of the road, and you have to walk at least 100 meters just to get to the nearest building entrance. So it's ridiculous. And so we think that we first need to correct the DNA of the city. So this is the previous, the old version of the plan done by locals. It's a block, and we transfer to a small block grid system, and also to have more mixed use land uses in this area. By the way, it's about 10 square kilometers size, and also we changed the traditional road hierarchy system into a more evenly distributed and narrow roads. And also we think that because in Chinese cities, not only BRT has the value, also like a metro and NMT. So we need to consider BRT in a broader context by integrating different systems. So this one shows the metro and also the BRT and the regular bus, but also the NMT routes. And give you an example, we were trying to be innovative to develop one street typology, which is including BRT and NMT. So it's an auto-free road, and we think this is can be very interesting to happen. And this one show that in the photo there's a white material, so we propose to the government that they can retrofit at least in the longer term, so to make it more public space rather than space for cars. And this is kind of the background of this creation change. So in sum, what are the BRTOD principles? So I would start with the good DNAs, because this is opportunities for China, also the biggest challenge in China. So small block instead of super block. However, that's very challenging because it's kind of affect the growth machine for the Chinese government. They do this to make money for the government budget. But we think it's very critical. And second, I would suggest put walking and biking in front of the BRT. That's the tradition, and that's also about access to the system, to the BRT system. And then integrate BRT with other systems and mixed use. And this one also important to have unevenly distributed density for the whole city area. So to cluster high density development around the transit the BRT stations. And number 6 and number 7 is on the screen. So I think this is our current view about the challenge and the opportunities to have BRT-oriented development in the Chinese cities. and I hope it's relevant to our discussion today.
Good, thank you. So, I have a couple of questions, time for a couple of questions for now.